Hi. So you see, we don't really start in a bang. I just stand up on the stage and go, hey, what's going on? How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Thank you very much for attending our second Spirit Uncensored event. We hold these every second of the Sunday of the month, and officially, we will be here on the second Sunday of the month at 5 p.m. For our first one, there was this big old question. It was, I don't know how many people are going to come. I don't know what kind of space we're going to need. I don't know if Cliff's going to say, nuh-uh, not in my church. So we had to see how it went. And apparently it was magic. So that's what made us a match made in heaven. And this is our second one, so I'm super excited about it. And Reverend David, will tell us a little bit more about what Spirit Uncensored is all about.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. Good to see you guys. And so many people. And it's so cool to see the family from GTC coming to support us, and it's really great. This is our second, and this is our new home. Thank you so much, Reverend Cliff, and Ashley. I appreciate it for you allowing us to do this. Spirit Uncensored, what is it? What does that mean? Some of you who came last time, heard us talk about being open and willing to share the truth in any way that we want to. And that includes the language, and the language, we talked about that, but it's not just about the language. It's not just about whether or not we're going to use. I mean, here's the question. Do y'all think that we're going to use curse words just because we like to use curse words?
Hell yeah!
Yeah, we will. But it's not just about the shock. It's not about the shock value so much, because here's the thing. If you've been living in this country the last 2 years and you can still be shocked, you are some innocent-ass people, man. So we're not here to shock you. We're just here to express in the way that it seems so natural, the way that it seems so right. That's all we're really wanting to do. We want to share truth as we understand truth, the way we've been taught truth, the way we learn truth, the way we've allowed Spirit to bring truth into consciousness, into our hearts, and to be shared with those who want to come in and share it. And we're going to do it in all kinds of ways. We're going to do a thing called treatment. Oh, by the way, some of you may have noticed that there are these things on the side of the aisles, and thank you. And these are donation envelopes. So if you have a mind to do some donation enveloping, we're going to invite you to get them, pass them around. There's also some data cards that are being, not till the end. Our data cards will not be till the end, I just got told, so we're not worried about that till the end, that there are data cards. Good, thank you. So we're going to do these as we go into the service today, as we go through this event. And if you're so inclined, feel free to fill them up. So we thank you for that. I want to mention a thing called, what we call treatment. Now, most of y'all come from the science of mind. How many do not come from science of mind studies or understanding? Okay, thank you so much for that. We appreciate that. Because there's some terminology that we want to explain. Treatment is one of them. Treatment is something that is also called affirmative prayer. And here's what it is and here's what it's not. It's recognizing that the energy that is God, the creative process, that which is always always in creation, always moving energy, exists right here, right now, exists within us. And what we do is we use that energy, using the power of the mind, to focus on the truth, to recognize and to see the spiritual truth that's going on at any given moment. Here's what it's not. It's not asking for blessings. It's not saying, please help me. It's not going outside of ourselves in any way. It's recognizing that the power exists right here, right now. That you are that, I am that, Karen is that, Reverend Karen is that. And so we use this process called treatment in an affirmative way. At the end of the treatment, those of us who studied or study with or attend services of Science of Mind usually end the treatment with the phrase, and so it is. Feel free not to say that if you don't feel comfortable with it. If you're people who say amen, please say amen. If you want to say hallelujah, please say hallelujah. If you want to say fierce as fuck, say fierce as fuck. And so it is. So that's the whole thing. That's what Spirit Uncensored really is. It's the willingness, the readiness to say, let's take this, that which we know, and let's expand it. Let's explode it. Let's experiment. Let's invest. Let's see what happens, because we're not Spirit Uncensored. We're Spirit Uncensored. And this is what I know. I know that right here and right now, that energy, that amazing energy, that fantastic energy, that holy energy, that divine energy, that creative energy is right here, collectively. As I'm looking out right now on this massive, beautiful faces, I'm seeing God. I'm seeing God right there. Reverend Karen Mitchell with those beautiful eyes, and that gorgeous smile, that wonderful voice that's going to be shared with us, and an incredible mind. And I'm seeing God in Martha Diaz. And I'm seeing God in my wife, Nada. And I'm seeing God in every face and every eye, manifested in its own unique and wonderful, beautiful, incredible form. And we're here today to share that Godness, that goodness that we are. And I know that that energy exists in me, and that right now, as I'm not even sure how this thing is going to completely unfold tonight, I know it's going to be done perfectly. Because that's all that we are. That's all that God is. It is that perfection. It is that love. It is that truth. It is that righteousness that says, I'm here. Wherever I am, God is. Wherever Julio Cesar is, God is. Wherever Naomi is, God is. And it's right. And it's right here. And it's right now. And I'm so grateful for the knowing of this. I'm so grateful for this collection of divine energy brought together that motivates me to be filled with Spirit. And to know that there's truth. And this whole evening is about truth. And so, knowing that the truth is here now, and knowing that the truth is going to be shared, going to be known, going to be understood, I release my word. Knowing it is so, as together we say, in your own way.
So it is.
Thank you, Reverend David. All right, so our theme for last month, this month, and next month is based on the book, Jen Sincero's book, You Are a Badass. And this theme for this month in particular is about how to get rid of your BS, which in Science of Mind terms, we often talked about as belief system. And specifically for me, I came to the Science of Mind to identify what my beliefs are that are no longer serving me, and identifying a new system that works. And all of the ministers that we have in their panel today are all people who have consciously decided what that belief system is. As opposed to, I was born in this, so I'm just going to believe what other people told me to believe. There are people who make the active effort to identify what beliefs no longer serve them and choose the ones that do. And that's the part of the book. So we'll have books for sale after this. You can see Connie, raise your hand, or Dell, who's on camera, raise your hand, and they will hook you up with a book for $10. And I'm so grateful that Reverend Karen Mitchell not only agreed to be on our panel, but to sing for us today as well. And the first song that I asked her to sing is a song that I used to help release this BS that I had going on. I came to LA so that I could use TV, scripted TV, for positive change, and was so frustrated that it literally took me 6 years to even see what scripted TV development even looked like, to be involved in that at all. And so I used this song, I would listen to this song on repeat every morning to help me deal with the fact that I was frustrated. And this song was part of that releasing of the old BS system and choosing to know that I am supported no matter what, and I don't have to worry. I'm going to get exactly where I want to go, and that song helped me get exactly where I want to go. So I'd like to welcome Reverend Karen Mitchell.
Hello, beautiful people. I'm so glad that Karen and David, Reverend Karen and Reverend David asked me to be part of this amazing event. I heard about it on Facebook, saw it on Facebook, and I was like, wow, that's really fabulous. I'm not a swearing kind of person. It's just because I had little kids like for so long, and I was like, poop is my big word that I use. You know, when the poop comes out, and the young mom is really upset at that point. So this is a place of growth for me. Maybe I'll graduate to the S word. So Daniel Lima wrote this song and was kind enough to give it to me first to put on my first New Thought album. And it is a really special thing to say to yourself, okay, here goes nothing. I'm through asking where I'm going. I've been asking all my life. I've grown tired of all this wondering when everything seems to turn out right. So when my mind needs something to do and wants to know the future, I whisper this, I'm okay. I've always been, and I'll always be that way. So here goes nothing. I'm taking a chance. I'm opening up, knowing that I'm in good hands. And here comes everything. It's all on the line. Oh, I'm not afraid this time. Some say it's crazy, some say naive to close my eyes and take the leap. But I know better, 'cause I believe even in the dark my soul can see. So when my mind plays its usual games, oh, my answer is always the same. Here goes nothing. I'm taking a chance. I'm opening up, knowing that I'm in good hands. And here comes everything.
And special thanks for Robbie Gilman on piano. He also came with Karen Mitchell with a package deal, and I'm so grateful for that. Because when I advertised for this originally, it was different people who were singing, and I found out on Thursday they weren't doing it. And I went, oh, okay, but we're in this, right? So there was no worry. It was just like, let's figure out a solution. And that's what happened. Spirit Uncensored, Spirit unfolded perfectly. Is what that was about. I'm grateful for this gift, so thank you.
It goes everywhere.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So the way I'm going to do introductions is I will just explain how I got here, how these ministers came into my life, and give them the mic for them to introduce themselves, but taking into consideration the question of how did you release the BS, or how did you form the new BS, however it is that you want to think of it, to become the person that you are, to become the minister that you are. And so I'll start with Reverend Karen Mitchell, because she was just up here. So the first time that I saw Reverend Karen Mitchell, first time I saw her is when she was performing at the Global Truth Center. It was not called the Global Truth Center at the time, it was called the NoHo Art Center in Hollywood. And I grabbed her on his hand and I was like, this woman is incredible. And just found out that she had just graduated from her practitioner class and was like, how did this person become all of this, be able to write these songs and do all of this and just have graduated? And so I just was an instant fan. And you probably don't know this about me, but part of my incentive of taking the ministerial classes, I knew you were going to be in it. And having the opportunity to study by her side, because she's just been an inspiration for me. I didn't intend to be a minister, but in regards to releasing that old BS, I was using her music to help me do that. So the idea of being able to be a fan in the room was just too much. So, and when I called Connie and told her that Karen was going to be here, I said, I love Karen Mitchell. And Connie said, I know, because I make it very clear that I love Karen Mitchell. So that's what's up. That's my introduction of you. But feel free to introduce yourself in the context of how you become who you are now.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you, Reverend Karen. You're the bestest. And being in class with you was always amazing. Always amazing. You just tell it like it is. And I love that. I respect that. So I was raised in a basic, sort of a non-defined Christian background, not really focusing on the Christian, mostly focusing on the choir, because my mom was a singer in the choir. And wherever the best choir was, that's kind of where we went. So I kind of absorbed a lot of different Christian kinds of things. And it didn't really ever resonate with me. I just didn't believe all the stories that were taken as not allegory, but as sort of true, like this really happened. And you know I have to believe that it does. So I was kind of a rebel, and I didn't want to believe what people told me I had to believe. So I was always on a spiritual journey, and didn't really know it. I didn't seem like I was on a spiritual journey. I was just trying to do music. I was just trying to hang out with musicians and write songs, and that's what I did since I was 5. I've been writing songs. So I married a bass player who, in 1985, who was the father of my sons, who, in our 14-year marriage together, gradually descended into the depths of alcoholism and abuse and all of that stuff that goes with it. It's a family disease, so we were all going crazy. And the blessing of when he finally did get sober, it didn't change his personality. He was still impossible to live with, but he was sober and impossible to live with. So, sometimes you don't get what you're really wishing for, but the miracle is that he did get sober. He's still sober to this day. But we went through some very difficult times, and the gift was that I got involved in the Al-Anon program that told me about a different kind of spirituality, that I could decide what God was to me. And that sometimes I had to borrow somebody else's faith or borrow somebody else's wisdom and experience to get me there, and fake it till I make it. And that started me reading all of these books, Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Wayne Dyer, and it just kind of went on from there. I'm sure you guys can relate to picking up your first sort of self-help, new agey kind of book and thinking, wow, there's people who think like this. So I started writing songs like that, songs about that, and my experience with it, and just couldn't believe there were actual music with words that were uplifting and powerful that I could listen to, like people like Daniel Raymond, Faith Rivera, Ricky Byers Beckwith. So that was it. That started my whole thing. I became involved in Science of Mind, and I just took my first class and never stopped. I just kept taking class after class after class, and would go singing. I met Connie in Simi Valley, and I would go singing up there, and I was just singing everywhere. So then I ended up, because of Doug LeBeau, I ended up at NoHo Global Truth Center and kept taking classes and became a practitioner. And then never wanted to be a minister like you. I was like, oh, seriously, please. I'm like, no, people, please, no. And then the definition of minister changed for me. It was like it didn't mean what I thought it meant in my head when I used to go to church as a little kid. So minister looks different today, doesn't it? And I love that. And that's right where we need to be. That's why we're here. So what got me here today is all of you people, every experience, everything, every song, anything that came through me, downloaded, uploaded, wherever you want to call it, and just taking that step. Just one choice at a time. That's all you have to do, one choice at a time. And BS, BS comes up. The BS comes up, the bad BS, the old BS comes up. But I recognize it faster, I deal with it faster, and I don't expect that it's anyone else's problem but mine. So I think I'm probably easier to live with than in 1985. It was just a crazy, trying to hold everything together. So that's all. I have to say, this is it. This is enough for Karen Mitchell. Yeah. Okay.
Come on back. That was your introduction. That's what that was all about. So have a seat, get comfortable, and I want to give you all a sense of what the quote-unquote rules are. There are none, because we're uncensored. So the whole idea, the reason why we don't have a spotlight is the intention for this is a conversation. And originally we weren't even going to have a microphone, but I wouldn't want anyone not to hear this wisdom coming out of people's mouths. So that's what the microphone is for. But in regards to there being no rules, we may end up staying on the same introduction and ending this panel on introductions if that's how it unfolds. So feel free to jump in if there was something Karen Mitchell said that made you say, I want to know more. I have a question about that. As long as we get to the introduction phase, and I will make sure that we get to the introduction phase, that may very well be what it is, but we are just letting Spirit flow in this experience. So if Spirit calls for you to yell out a question, feel free. If you want to raise a hand and ask me for a microphone, feel free to do that as well. And so from this point on, I will be introducing everyone from an alphabetical order kind of deal. So next is Reverend Nancy Berggren. Come on up, Reverend Nancy. So Reverend Nancy, I also met from the Global Truth Center, and I believe it was actually the Global Truth Center by the time that I met Reverend Nancy. I don't know why, I don't know what was going on. But, it may have been something like Reverend James was out of town and Reverend Nancy was speaking, and I hadn't seen her on stage before that point. And yeah, it happened. So Reverend Nancy, the first talk I ever heard Reverend Nancy give was about the ego. You know the ego talk. I know you know the ego talk. This ego talk, where she talked about how an ego sheds, Ronnie's laughing because we were so moved by this talk, that's right, 6 of us. Where the eagle sheds all of its feathers and its toenails, like it just releases everything and allows everything to grow back. And the next time Reverend Nancy was on stage, she said, so I lied about that story. Eagles don't really do that. I found out that was a myth. And at first, Ronnie and I, my wife Ronnie and I were like, what? We had chosen to live our lives based off of this story. But then there was this, I appreciated the fact that even though you had to stand up and tell a whole room full of people, last time I was up here, all of that was a lie. And I would know that you got the message that you needed. And it doesn't matter whether the story is true or not. What matters is that it inspired you. And I was so grateful for the fact that I was a part of a spiritual community where people had integrity, that it wasn't like, oh well, you're just going to walk around believing this thing isn't true. She made the effort to say, hey, look, y'all, my bad. Brother Nancy doesn't talk like that, that's all me, but you know. So that's where it started. But then from then on, as I took the practitioner class, Reverend Nancy was my cheerleader. She just sort of said, hey, I appreciate the fact that you're doing this. You're so great. I'm going to see you do great things in every step of the way. She says, tell me what's going on. Tell me what's new. And when I finished ministerial, Reverend Nancy had a gift for me on the next following Sunday. So I hadn't recognized that we formed this relationship. She just was constantly supporting me no matter what, regardless of the fact that I never said, Reverend Nancy, I love you, I love your support. She was just doing it for me. So I am so grateful for the gifts. I still use them. And there's a bag that says like hope and faith on it that I'm grateful for, and a rock. So thank you for that. And Reverend Nancy, tell us your story of how you became the Reverend Nancy and released your BS.
The first thing I want to say is because of what Reverend Karen has been speaking to, my support of her. For me, in my experience, it's so easy for me to see the truth for you. It is so easy for me to see your vision already realized when you're still in the mud going, I know where I want to go, but there's no way because my feet are stuck in this pit. But for me, there's no pit for you. For me, there's still a pit. So that's why sometimes I tell hi. Sometimes I tell stories that, then I have to turn around and go, and I used to do that with my kids. I used to do that with my kids. And I also did it in my center in Fallbrook. I was a senior minister at the church in Fallbrook for 10 years, which is San Diego area. And there's sort of this thing before we got unplugged, this thing with ministers that you didn't share what you were going through until you were on the other side of it, so that you could prove that's bullshit. Because if we can't be, that's inauthentic. That's not authentic. That's inauthentic. To pretend that just because there's some letters after your name or before it, that shit doesn't come your way. What happens is that the ship up levels. So that we're constantly being called to come up higher and higher and higher and higher. And how else would we be able to do that unless there were opportunities given to us to do that? So what I've been noticing lately, and even today, is when something comes my way that really smacks me upside the head, that for whatever reason, plugs into that old BS and pulls the rug out from under me, my goal and what I'm doing now, practicing doing now, is turning it around as where's the gift in it for me? How is this individual who just said you're full of shit or whatever they said that rubbed me the wrong way, where's the gift in that for me? What's in that? And I love the lines in the song today. Were you at GTC this morning? I thought not. That's what I thought. Which is the right place for you to be. But the line out of the first song was, what are you hiding from? That one really got me. The line of the second song was, what are you waiting for? So I put those two things together, what are you hiding from and what are you waiting for? It's all BS. And I kind of came to the real, because I had to drive to South Los Angeles, south, from Westlake. It was a lot of fun. And so I had a lot of time to think. And I don't know where I was going with that. I lost it in South Los Angeles. It's beautiful. Thank God. But anyway, I came to Signs of Mind. Interestingly enough, my husband had cancer, and I was freaking out. He was in the 70s. And my mother-in-law lived on the Kern River. Does anybody know where the Kern River is? Up above Bakersfield. So it was a little teeny tiny, so I was up there freaking and falling apart. So she sent me to her chiropractor, and I don't think he had anybody but me that day. There's only about 200 people in town. So I spent about an hour and a half with him, and before I left, he said, I want to give you this booklet. And he handed me the little Unity pamphlet. And I said, they were. And I said, well, I can't take that. That's yours. This is before religious. I said, I can't take that. That's yours. And he said, no, that's how I received it the first time. And I'd like to be able to pass on that gift. So that was my introduction. And I was very unhappy with myself at the time, for whatever reason. It really doesn't matter. I have stories. We all have. Does anybody not have a story? Would you make me cry? Can you make me cry? I can make you believe. Okay. So we'll skip that one. But I was working in Hollywood at the time, driving the 101 freeway, and I literally folded that Daily Word so that I could hold it on the steering wheel while I drove the 101 to get to Hollywood. I read it at every stoplight, I read it at every elevator, I read it every time I went to the restroom, I read it when my lunch, I read it all the time. I needed to, as Dr. James says, keep pouring in the clean water so that that old stuff that was gathered through childhood and being part of the bombing on Pearl Harbor, watching the ships turn over from my upstairs window, being a part of that evacuation and how that affected me, and we all had, what do they call that? ESTP. We all had it, but we didn't, that was the name for it, we didn't know what that was, so I was sick for a while. But really, Spirit guides us so that where we need to be, when we need to be there, we always show up. And whether it comes through alcoholism, or whether it comes through a shitty childhood, or whether it comes through a broken marriage, or a broken body, or a broken heart, it doesn't matter. Spirit uses, for me, Spirit uses those experiences to pull us through the door. So the first religious science church I went to was on Whitsett. And I walked in, and afterwards I was having coffee, and they said, what do you think? I said, I've come home. I did not know that there was a teaching that actually taught what I felt in my heart my whole life, but I didn't have a name for it, or a word for it, or anything like that. And here were people that were talking my language, and I loved it. So the last thing that I want to share with you is something that came up for me a few months ago, and it was my victim story. When I was 10 years old, I won't tell you the whole story, but I was doing a film, I was working on a film for 3 months, and at RKO, which is no longer there, and I had a peak experience as a 10-year-old. I was at a grand piano, they taught me to stay playing, everybody believed I was playing the piano because I was in music, blah, blah. So anyway, went back to my chair, and everybody's going like, yeah, we changed everything, we love you, you're fabulous. And I went back to my chair, and my mother said, I said, aren't you going to congratulate me? She said, you sit on that chair, and don't let me ever hear you say anything like that about yourself again. And I never did another film at that time, until I grew up. But here's the thing, about 6 months ago, I got an aha. All this time, I've been focusing on that moment. And all I had to do was rewind to the moment at the grand piano. That's the gift. But I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know that was a choice. That was my life. And that was the story I had lived out of for way too many decades. So that's the gift that I want you to put in your pocket. When something comes up, rewind. Rewind to the happy time. If it's a physical thing, if it's a financial thing, if it's a relationship thing, if it's a work, a home, it doesn't matter what it is. Rewind back to that time when the joy was so full that you just became the light. You just became that energy. And there was nothing there to get or prove or do. You were just being. And we all have that because we all are it. That's what you are. but society tries to tell us that we're something else. I love you. That's my deal. Bye.
That's awesome. We are uncensored just because of you. I am so grateful that I created an uncensored platform just to see this version of you. I'm grateful. Archie, did you have a question? You should ever give a mic. You want to yell it from your seat.
I'll just yell it from my seat.
All right.
Thank you for the rewind. I think that's my first time hearing it. I know for me, I was in the 7th grade. I was about that tall, and for no apparent reason, I walked out to get a certificate of participation, and the student body started clapping. And then there was another one that and there was 4 of them, and they were all screaming like it was a joke, but it literally changed my life. And I always want to remember to rewind back to that moment. And I just now remembered to rewind back to that. That's my special, because it's easy for me to go and do the other, stop the after stuff. But that was my moment, and you just reminded me. Oh, and also, when we're at this other service over here on St. Andrews, or that one place where we're at, you grabbed me over and you kind of spoke to me like a 12-year-old about getting involved with prosperity thought process. And I wasn't able to go to the class, but it has had a profound effect on me. And I don't know if you realize this, but I've become the manager of the job that they tried to fire me from 4 times.
All right, so Reverend Dr. Keith Cox. Anyway, you can do a come up here, little kisses from there. Reverend Dr. Keith Cox was the senior minister of a center in Los Angeles. What was that center called? Years ago.
The Creative Arts Center for Spiritual
The Creative Arts Center for Spiritual Living. And I think I found that through some kind of Google search when I first came to LA. And it was around the time that I ended up at the Novo Arts Center. And it was a smaller center, so I appreciated the energy, and that's why I went to Novo Arts more regularly. However, Dr. Keith's message was what I needed to hear. And so my wife and I made a conscious commitment to show up as most as we can commit to. It was around maybe once every 6 weeks or so to hear it, because it was what I needed on a consistent basis. It was even providing my minister with some feedback of being more like Dr. Keith. And I bet that went over well. I didn't know you all had a relationship before then. I learned that after the fact. And he changed his message based off of that feedback. So I didn't know him. I just showed up at the services, was inspired, and left. And around the time that I finished ministerial, Reverend Dr. Keith reached out to me and invited me to come speak. He was one of the centers that invited me to speak after I became a minister. My intention was never to speak anywhere, but he was one of those people that said, come fill in for me while I'm out of town. And the second time when I spoke there was when he had sprained his ankle and called me on a Saturday and said, can you come tomorrow? And I was so grateful for the opportunity of that trust, of knowing that what I had done so far was I know that even though you have less than 24 hours, you are going to kill it. And he had whatever resources I may have wanted, he was all ready to help. But I said, I appreciate the opportunity, I will be there, I got this. And so he was one of those people who really encouraged me to really step into and own my minister title. My intention was to live my life over here and let minister just be something that I have, but not anything I use. And Reverend Dr. Keith really encouraged me to use it, and is one of the many reasons why we are all here today. So I appreciate that very much, and thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Imagine not using her voice, right? You can't imagine that, so keep using your voice. I just want to take a moment and let you know that an aha that I had sitting here a moment ago was how much I've missed hearing you sing in your presence. Yeah. So, BS, bullshit. There's a lot of it in this teaching. But what I want to, I guess, speak about, because I don't really want to tell my story, I'm so tired of the story the past couple of years, is to talk about the reason that I'm here, not here in this chair, but here walking this planet, is because as a minister, if that's the context that I'm being asked that in, is because I can't imagine not doing it. That's really the bottom line. And my teacher, as many others, said, if you can find something else to do, go do it. Don't do this. And there's a lot of other stuff I've done, and I've done it really, really well, too. And yet I keep coming back to this. And so I made a commitment when I took the role as the senior spiritual leader, in quotes, for the Center for Spiritual Living in Los Angeles, which I knew would be a wild journey from the perspective of dealing with personalities, of stepping into a role that other people have had, of it being an older congregation, of parts of them dying, of hoping to get new people in there. You know, there's ministers in the room, you guys know that process, right? That if I was going to do it, the commitment had to be to me for it to be my spiritual journey. That it had to be about my awakening day by day by day by day by day, by choice, by interaction, by reaction, by thought, by the whole scenario had to be about me asking myself, what do I believe? And what is it that I want my life to look like and feel like? And that's not necessarily in any hierarchy. And then what am I here to give? I had a huge aha years ago. I started in the Atlanta Church of Religious Science in 1982, Dr. Kennedy Schultz. And I went there out of desperation, really isn't the right answer. It was more because a doctor had told me I'd be the next AIDS victim, and several around me, and everyone around me was dying. And it was home, just like you had said, Reverend Nancy. And I walked in and I knew I had found home. And he was a really radical dude in the sense that he was quite verbose and at the same time loved to push boundaries. And yet he was always dressed in this old three-piece suit. His head was bald, and he pretended like that's not what he was doing. And I used to flip him out because I'd say to him, you know what, I'm not really being inspired by you. I see you in heels and a dress and a big wig. And you know, like that. But one Sunday morning, he was talking about how it's the nature of nature to give. He goes, and what we have wrong in the world is that we try to figure out what it is that we can get. And he goes, you know, if you think about all the people that go out on Saturday nights, they're going out to see how they can get laid, where they really should think about how they can go and give laid. And he said that I had this huge epiphany about that's really the nature of life. And I've heard that in my mind, not necessarily go get laid, but about, well, maybe sometimes, but also about how if I am committed to this philosophy and this teaching, then the question for me is, what more can I give? How can I give right now? Not so that I may get, but to stay in the flow of the nature of nature. And so in terms of ministry, what that has looked like for me is being a leader. I'm a natural born leader. I'm not saying that egotistically, that's just a spiritual truth we're going in. That's one of my human truths. And so, and I have the ability to teach this teaching in a modern way. And so it would be selfish of me and arrogant of me to not do that. Not because of what I get in return, but then if I wasn't doing that, I would be propagating the energy that I preach and teach about, which is that we're all the power and the intelligence and the wisdom of the divine. And so our role in life is to live authentically and purposefully and fully and completely and as loudly as we can to the universe. And so that's it, you know, the BS that I have is at times in my life forgetting that that's true. And then finding out how do I bring myself back into alignment with that and then live it and then support individuals in finding that on their own path. And then just do that day by day, just day by day by day. And let me tell you, ministry in the context of running a center, which is what we call it, or a church, man, it ain't an easy job. It's right, Cliff? Right, Tricia? You've done it. Nancy, you've done it. Anybody else in the room done it? It's not, yeah, you've done it, right? It's not an easy job in the context that when people like to dump their shit on you. They just like to dump it. They hold you to a high degree. They want you to be their savior, whether that's from the perspective of saving them spiritually, or they project their sexual stuff onto you. I mean, it's a lot that goes on. And yet, it's such a blessing. Because it gives the individual, me, I'll speak up, the opportunity to just step back and ask myself, what do I believe here? Is what I stand up on Sunday mornings and talk about, do I really believe that's true? And I give myself permission to answer that in the sanctuary of my own mind. Sometimes I say it out loud, sometimes I don't, but it's about my own personal conscious evolution. And if I tend to that, then I serve what I'm here to serve.
My Spirit Uncensored partner in crime, Reverend David Allan Cruz. I met Reverend David when he was on the board of trustees at the Global Truth Center, when my wife was also on the board of trustees. And him and his wife, Nada, were, I feel like I'm making you guys look, let me come over here. Him and his wife, Nada, were in the board meetings, and David always comes in these fly suits and always has some wisdom to drop. And I learned that David hadn't taken any or very many classes at all by the time that I met him when he was on the board of trustees, but you would never know that. He felt like a minister when you met him initially. And Reverend James, the minister at Novo Art Center, Global Truth Center, recognized this within David and just said, you should be a minister. And David recognized that it made sense to get the title that matched the person. And so what he proceeded to do, was take every class at once. He was in the foundations class, he went whatever, Emerson, all of it, he doubled up, tripled up, was taking every single class. And around that time, I had been taking not every single class, I was taking one class per term, specifically because, as I mentioned, I've been experiencing so much failure trying to get to where I was getting that the only thing I can control is showing up in class. They would let me in if I paid money to show up, so I would do that. And David was in these classes being his ministerial self. And so David and I were in our second term of Prac 2, because David just skipped Prac 1, he just came in at Prac 2, and was in my ministerial class as well. And at our panels, well, before we were all set to, we were basically sitting in a circle outside of this room where we were having our official panel with 3 people to determine, based on this interview, whether we would be ministers or not. And David sat in the circle and proceeded to tell each one of us what gift we all have as ministers. And that it didn't matter at all what it was, what happened in that room, this is who we are. And when it was David's turn, he said, I'm not finished. And made them wait. We went, somebody else, they pulled somebody else, and that person came back and they said, okay, David, you have to stop. And so David paused his explanation as to how we're all ministers and went in and did his thing and came back and continued. And it really demonstrates how David is the kind of person to identify, just as Reverend Nancy, he can easily identify people's gifts and just shows up as a minister no matter what. And that minister title didn't change anything. He's always been the same person he always was, but now it's official. So, welcome.
I've never been official. That's nice to know. It's good. Thank you so much. Any wonder why we're doing this? I mean, this is so much fun. Look at this. Anytime I can get some of the quality of Reverend Nancy to call bullshit, that is a success. That's something awesome. I have the privilege, and it was an absolute privilege, of studying with Karen and Karen.
Karen Squared, yeah.
Karen Squared. And the quality of the minds, the inspiration that was happening, it was like every class was an adventure. Every class was exciting. Every class was something that would be fulfilling. And you kind of start looking forward to it because you know you're going to come out of there much more than when you went in. And that was the whole experience. I'm seeing a couple of people who are just about getting ready to start their ministry courses, and they've just been through the practitioner program, and so they know what I'm talking about, and they know that it's going to be exactly that same experience. How did I find this? I always say that Science of Mind found me. Some of y'all know that I'm a practicing hypnotherapist right here in the city of Burbank. But at the time, I was just kind of starting my practice, and I was over in the Monrovia. Actually, it was in the Foothill Center, but I'm trying to remember the name of the town, right above Monrovia. And I was looking for an office space. That's all I was doing, looking for an office space, and I found out that this little place might have some office space, and I went in. It was kind of like weird, you know. Okay. Because I have a Catholic background. I don't know how many y'all have. No Catholics in here, I know. And 9 years of parochial school, altar boy choir with the whole 9 yards, you know, serving mass, Latin mass. That whole thing was all a big part of my life. So church to me was church. And service was service in the name of the Lord. And it was like, wow. So we walk into this Science of Mind Center, and it's like, okay, cute. What is this about? They had this little room that I later found out was a thing called a practitioner's room, where practitioners would see their client. It was really nice, and I said, this would be a perfect room for hypnotherapy. And I said, okay, so who do I talk to? And so it turns out that they were going to have a service, and the reverend's were going to be there. And I said, that's probably a good idea for me to go and talk to them, introduce myself. Went in, and I remember, I'll never forget, it was Reverend Michael Spears, some of you might know who he is. He's in Chicago now. And as I'm listening to him speak, he was saying things almost word for word that I was saying with my clients the day before. What the hell is that? And as I'm listening to him speak, I said, there's something going on here, because either he's a hypnotherapist or I'm a preacher, but I have no, but this is worth checking out. And I ended up coming back, and then coming back again, and then coming back again. I started getting to know the people, and well, most of y'all do, but for those of you who are not involved in Science of Mind, they're the friendliest people in the world. You don't come if you don't expect to make friends, because they're going to pull you in. They're going to give you the hugs, they're going to give you the kisses, they're going to pull you in. You're going to be part of the family. Next thing you know, I'm on the board of, how the hell did I end up on the board of trustees? I became a church guy. And I was taking some classes, and then as some things happened, the center stopped being a center, and I moved on, and I found the NoHo Center, and we started meeting these wonderful people. I was taking a few more classes, and again, I found myself on the board of trustees. Is that my time straight up? My time's up? It always happens anyway. And that day, as Karen was saying, the day that I was invited to come up to Reverend James' office, and he said, I'm thinking that you might want to start taking classes and work your way toward ministry. And I'm like, huh? Because the last thing I ever thought of myself, but I think you've heard this already refrained several times today, is being a minister. What the hell does that mean? And what is that? How's that going to affect my life? What do I have to do? And at first I kind of took it as a joke, and I kind of let it go. And I said to my wife, kind of jokingly, she says, why not? A few months later, Reverend James said, I'm really thinking you ought to do this. And I'm like, whoa, maybe I ought to do this. Started taking the courses, and my intention was never really to be a minister, because I always thought my hypnotherapy practice was a ministry. I always thought of it as that. But as I started to take the classes, I started working with these incredible spiritual souls, these minds, as I started to learn what Science of Mind was really about, and hearing people like Reverend Nancy speak and teach, I started to shift into something else. My work as a hypnotherapist was becoming increasingly spiritual. I was opening my mind into a whole nother level of understanding what the human being is about, and incorporating the teachings into what I was doing with my clients, and seeing the effect of it. It was working. The people were getting it. They liked it. I started using words like God and Spirit, and recognizing that I am the creator, and teaching my clients to recognize that they are the creator of their reality. And taking responsibility for everything in their lives by recognizing that each and every day in this consciousness, you are creating your reality, your truth. How has it changed me? I didn't think it would. But once it happened, once I made that shift and walked across that line, something moved. And I find myself each and every day, as Reverend Keith said, looking for that consciousness, looking for God in everything. I'm blessed with living a very, very comfortable lifestyle, so I have a beautiful environment to work from, and I get to be out and see and feel and experience it. And then where I work, in my office, to work with the individuals and to realize the kind of life that I've created from where I've come from to where I am now. And it's all about how the mind works, and how the mind, in conjunction with the recognition that spirit is always part of this process. Y entonces estoy compartiendo todo lo que estoy aprendiendo, porque la mayoría de mis clientes hablan español, y tenía que aprender a hablar español, because I didn't speak Spanish before. And this is also a thing. It opened my mind to say, yes, you can. Y entonces puedo compartir esta verdad con más gente, con mi gente, con mi comunidad. So it becomes something that I get to share on a variety of levels with a variety of people, recognizing it's all one thing, it's all the mind of God.
It was always it.
It's always it.
Thank you, Reverend David. And last, we have Reverend Felicia. Say your last name for me.
Parazaider.
Reverend Felicia Parazaider. Come on up. And it's only fitting that Reverend Felicia is last, because I just met her last week. I saw a video that she posted on Facebook. It was just a video that was posted on Facebook, and the Next Gen group that I went to, the Next Gen retreat in May, yes, Jonathan, who was doing our sound here, I met there also, and it was wonderful enough to just agree to do our sound today, did it. So, microphone is brought to you by Jonathan. And in our Instagram group, somebody posted a video of Reverend Felicia in it, and somebody else said, oh, I know her. And then everybody proceeded to say how they wish there were more Reverend Felicias in the world and how amazing she is. And so I went on Facebook and I just searched for her and found that, just like me, she also says that love is her religion. And she was the only person I've ever come across that said, this is literally what she teaches, and had this service specifically about love being her religion. And I said, oh yeah, I gotta go to that. And then it was gone by the time I was available. But that's neither here nor there. Maybe she'll play with us. I'm hoping that her being here is just the beginning of her playing church with us. So that's where it started. And Reverend Felicia spoke at the Global Truth Center Peace Day a couple weeks ago, and we had already chosen our panel for this week. And somebody said, I wish we would have Reverend Felicia, my board, were able to attend, and said, she would have been so great. We already had our people. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'm glad you all love her. We'll keep that in mind, and maybe one day we can bring her out, and somebody canceled. So I cold messaged her and said, hey, I think you're cool. Will you come play church with us? And she said, yeah, maybe we should meet. And I thought that was a good idea, like actually meeting before she shows up here. And so she came to my office and we had a conversation in my office, and our interns were all like bringing her coffee and being adorable. So we vibed, that's what I say, we vibed, and I'm very grateful that she's here today.
Many blessings, family. How are you? It's wonderful to be here, and so much joy and wisdom from hearing everybody on this panel. Let's see, where can I begin? I was raised here in the San Fernando Valley, a place called Encino, and Encino in the house. And a big part of my story, y'all, is that I was raised up in the music business, and my father began the rock group Chicago. So, and I say that just to say how it really informed so much of who I am and was, and definitely a belief system was created for me by what my father did, and that was, I'm not enough. Because my father was larger than life. My dad was just this figure, you know, this famous person in a rock band. And so growing up with that, I was always in the shadow. And being this pretty little kid, growing up in Encino, I was like, what could I have ever known possibly of a disappointment? And so, of course, what often comes with that, addictions, you name it, I've done it, worn the t-shirt and everything. And by the time I was 25, I had crashed and burned so very many times. They actually, I think, knew me by name at different emergency rooms in the valley. And so, you know, by the grace of God, here I sit before you all, here we are together. I had an experience now. At 25, I started turning it around. 27, I began to think, you know, what am I doing? I really love being of service. I was very active in 12-step work, but it wasn't enough. I was thinking, there's got to be something more. So right on my 28th birthday, on my golden year, on August 28th, I am living in Sun Valley, and I have an absolutely phenomenal spiritual experience that is going to change my life. And it takes place at Carl's Jr. How does that happen? So only in my life, I've had some of the most religious, spiritual experiences at fast food restaurants. So there I go, I'm like, you know, I think I want some onion rings. I was just telling you this the other day. And so I think I want some onion rings or something. It's 3 in the morning. Like I said, it's early morning on my birthday. And I pull in, and I notice that there's what appears to be a homeless man at the drive-thru window. I order my food, I pull around, and I'm a heavy chain smoker at the time. And so he asked me, do you have a cigarette? And I didn't have any more. I had left my pack at my house, and I'm like, no man, I don't have any. He goes, do you want to get high? And here I'm, you know, a couple years clean, I'm doing the do, and I'm thinking, why is he asking me this? And I go, no, I'm clean. And he looks at me, and his eyes well up, and he goes, you know, this shit is killing me. I used to be somebody. And everything changed in that moment. And we began to have this incredible conversation at a soul level, at a heart level. And by the time I pulled away, and the food is taking forever, and no one's there, so this is total spirit moving. This was supposed to happen. And so by the time I get the food, I ask him his name. He tells me his name. I never share that. That's my own. And I said, just don't give up hope. Just don't give up. There's always hope. I drive away, and I'm thinking, how did I not know what I was supposed to do? You know, how did I not know my call? I'm here to speak. I'm here to write. I'm here to serve. I'm compelled to. So that man changed my life. That was a moment. There's been a lot of other moments in my life. There was a moment where I was competing. I was a classical pianist, and I was at a recital, I'm probably 19 at this point, and this young man goes and he plays, he's maybe 14 years old, and I was struck by how good he was. And all I could, this is the belief system at the time, this not enoughness, I just went, he's going to be better. When he's 19, he'll be better than me right now. And I stopped playing. And I was a prodigy. The old belief system, I'm not enough. You know, my dad's this gargantuan, but it wasn't just my dad, it seeped into every area of my life. This not enoughness, this smallness, this disempowerment, this victimhood. And yes, as I began to change, I meet the Carl's Jr. man. I'm in therapy. I remember telling my therapist the day of my birthday, I'm like, I'm going to speak, I'm going to write, and it's going to be great. And she's like, and you got work to do, girl. Because I did. But there were all these many, many things. And I began to see how you really can rewire yourself. You know, I've heard that on this panel this evening. You can rewire these things that you think, oh, they're going to stick with me forever and ever. No, that's not true. You know, I've seen the victimhood fall away. Now, I will say this, because we are uncensored and we are totally authentic here, that I still get that stuff of, the victimhood is way, way better. I think of it like as recovery, but I still get nervous and I still think, oh, you know, I don't know, I'm not the greatest speaker, or I'm not this, but you know what, I don't care. Because what you were just saying a little while ago, I'm here to love, I'm here to inspire, I'm here to help people in that process of healing and loving. And so that's all that matters. This is all God's. This ain't the Felicia show. You know, I like to think it is. I am a rising Leo. And I am the Enneagram. I'm a 4 Enneagram. But you know, but it's not. Kidding aside, this is a troubling time that we're living in, as much as there's beauty and joy. And so I take that very seriously as far as this call of healing and loving. And that's what we're supposed to do. My God. Amen. And so it is.
So, are you have something to say? You're reaching for a mic. Here you go.
So I want to say two things to acknowledge. First off, acknowledge you for what you just said about you're growing. You know, that's part of all of this. So oftentimes as ministers, people they want to forget that you're human. You know, and so you're human, man, and you're on a journey. So will you hold my bottle of water while I do this? Okay. So I shared something today in my service. I feel compelled to share it with you all in this moment. And so imagine that you're seeing a vista in front of you, and there are two tents. And you see these two tents under a starry sky, right? And one tent has the mind in it, and the other has the heart in it. And the mind says, I'm worried. And the heart says, just relax. And then the mind says, but I'm totally lost now. And the heart whispers over to the other tent, just follow me. And the mind responds out of their tent, but you've never been there before. And the heart then out of its tent says, trust me, you'll love it. And this voice comes out, and it's the soul. And I'm going to edit because we're here. It says, if you two would just fucking shut up, I'll show you the map.
And this perfectly fits in with Reverend Cliff's message this morning of following your intuition and your inner GPS. So I love that this all happened in this way. So we're going to laser the last question, and if we don't get to you, so we're going to go in I want to go first kind of order of what the how looks like for you. Because I will be completely honest, me in spiritual, I don't do a regimented spiritual practice. I do not have any sort of ritual in place. I do not meditate daily. I do not pray daily. I pray when I feel called to pray. I meditate when I'm literally at a thing where they are doing meditation. I don't do it on my own ever. And so for me, the reason I was taking all these classes is because I'm the kind of person that needs a structure that somebody else created. And even though Spirit Uncensored is a thing that I created, it's still a structure. I still got to show up and do it every month. And so it started with, I was taking all of these classes to learn how to change my BS. That was what I needed to do. And once I became a minister, it was, I need to stand in integrity. I cannot stand on a stage and tell someone to do something to inspire people to make different choices in their lives and not do it in my own. So that's where that switch came from for me. And so as we are so called, I invite you all to share what your spiritual practice consists of, if you want to share. Who wants to go first? Yeah.
Okay, so about a year ago, I became a Kundalini yoga instructor, and Connie's raising her hand. And I always call it the non-pretzel yoga, really, because I don't do like pretzel yoga and try to bend me myself like Gumby. It's not going to happen. I had a hip replacement a year ago also. But I walked up to get my certificate with no crutch or anything. Meditation, whenever I can, morning and night, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 15 minutes. I try not to judge myself. I have a lot going on. I'm a busy woman. But I need to take time to go inside of my own mind and shut up those little and just watch them go by the screen. Go, okay, I see you. Okay, back to my thing. Walking meditation, anything I can do. As I said, I'm busy, so I squeeze everything in throughout the day whenever I can. Praying constantly. I pray without ceasing. I pray every breath I can do is in a way of prayer. I'm at my day job, which I'm manifesting myself out of, which is fantastic. And I'm breathing a lot, just breathing. That's all you gotta do, breathe in, breathe out. I keep it very simple. I sing, I speak, I write songs, I share my experience, strength, and hope. And that to me is my spiritual practice. Anyway, I'm here, so this is part of what I do also.
The big question in this teaching, spiritual practice, we hear it all the time, what are you supposed to do? And the old school metaphysicians have said, drop to your knees and give me a 7-step treatment or a 5-step treatment. I think it's important for us to keep that in context. As this philosophy came into being, it was a new way of thinking. So it was important to create a structure for people to learn how to shift their mentality so that they can tap into their spirituality. We know that we have that capacity in this modern world. You don't have to do that per se unless you need it. I'm like you. I'm not good at following a regimen, but I am committed to spiraling upwards into a higher vibrational frequency. That I'm committed to. And so as a result of that, my spiritual practice is primarily about practicing my spirituality. And so what does that look like? Well, what that looks like is a myriad of things. Sometimes it's looking into the eyes of my dog who's in the car with the air conditioning on right now. I'm worried about her, so go check on her. That's one thing. Seeing that as God, right? Another is find yourself a teacher. Even though we've all gotten licensed and graduated, find yourself a teacher. Continue learning and growing and studying. It's out of that you're stimulated to question what you know and what you believe. The last teacher I had, he put me into some serious deep dream therapy. And it was one of the best things I've ever done. And as a result of that, I started painting, which became my spiritual practice. And then I started painting, reading about alchemy. So my suggestion would be broaden your belief system from what it is that you teach. Give yourself the permission to constantly be stimulated. And that in and of itself will help you grow.
Love it. I'll take it. Yes, I have a spiritual director ever since seminary. I work with her once a week. And what's exciting is that she's a Kabbalist, so I get some of that infused as well. I actually really, I think I must have been a nun in a past life, because for a while I actually thought of being a Buddhist nun. I was like, maybe I should take robes. This was before I got my call to Interfaith Seminary. So I ran the gamut. I've done Vipassana meditation. I've prostrated myself on the floor for hours at a time. There's a part of me that's very ascetic, and it makes sense to me. But In the last couple of years, not as much. It's much more fluid now. So I would say my spiritual practice is the how for me. Zumba. Because I have, for me, reminding myself that I have to be in my body, and coming back to that place of grounding and my core of who I am, and just being in my heart and my soul is helpful through movement. So whether it's Afro-Brazilian or reggaeton or something like that, I love it. It really, really helps me. But like I said, if this were 10 years ago, I would have said, oh, Vipassana most definitely. I also really love toning the names of God in Hebrew. So sound, that goes back to my musician upbringing, I think. So anything with singing, and joy, like you were mentioning joy, just playing, just having fun and playing. There is so much intensity and suffering and stuff that for us empaths, I'm sure there's so many empaths in the room, just being reminded of that joy. And so for me, it could just be, I just adopted a dog. Oh my gosh, hopefully he's not tearing up the apartment right now. No, we're gonna put a positive thing out there. So, but he's just been allowing me to love him, and he just totally receives. And that's my latest spiritual practice, is this little Chihuahua mix that just loves. And his name is Justice.
Yes.
I should say I've been going to yoga twice a week because I need a class that starts. And the yoga has been very inspirational for me lately.
I would say nature and music and nature. If I ever feel in my home, because I'm a single woman now, my husband is no longer with me, and so I spend a lot of time alone, more time than I would prefer to be alone. And if I find myself going anywhere that I prefer not to be, I have to get outside. I have to change, just like with a baby, and they start screaming, you can't shut them up. Change the environment. So I take a walk, or I turn on music. And singing. The other day, a couple months ago, I said, well, I'm not working right now. What can I do with what I have that I'm not using? And I'm going to sing. So my dad, when we got together as a family from the time I was little, we got together, we sang, and we danced. So music really takes me back to that joy place. And so I dance salsa and cumbia and reggaeton. And Tuesday nights I do swing dancing, and Thursday nights I do salsa. And I just joined a choir about 2 weeks ago, and we're doing a huge Christmas concert. So I'm just loving being in music, and what it evolves continually. If I find if I do the same practice every day, it gets it doesn't feed me anymore. I need something different, a change, and I continually take classes, continually study. And one of the things that really served me greatly was A Course in Miracles. And that started in the 70s when I was in the practitioner course. And the reason I loved it is that they train you on every hour, whatever your affirmation, let's say money's not my supply. On every hour, you're on the phone, you're in business, you're in a board meeting, whatever, you begin to discipline your mind so that it doesn't matter where you are or what's going around. You go, money's not my supply. And you're still on the phone, and you're still in the meeting, and you don't go anywhere, but you continually, and that's exactly what you were saying, pray without ceasing. So it's like that.
Thank you. So, Reverend David next time will share it, so be sure to come on November 11th to hear what Reverend David has to say about his spiritual practice. And let's give a big old warm thank you to our 5 ministers. So you're walking out the seat. I'm going to call you up later for prayer if you are around and not checking on the dog. If that's where you are, that's where you are. We'll see what happens. And now we're going to move into conscious giving. And as Dr. Keith mentioned, the nature of life is to give. And creating spaces like this, having there be an uncensored space that regardless of where anyone comes from, which I believe, that creating this space, giving to this space, allowing for the rent of this building to be paid, and for paid for musicians to perform, all of this we have all of this based off of your commitment to participate in the conscious giving process. So I'm going to invite Reverend Karen Mitchell up to take this mic from me, and she will lead us in our conscious giving song.
Okay, this is a call and answer. Those of you who know what that is.
We just really fast hats here, by the way.
Wow, look at that. Okay. So I will sing a line, and those of you from GTC, you know this song already, so help everybody else out, okay? And then you sing after me, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure. Or should I sing it? I'll sing it.
Yes,
I'll
yes.
sing the treatment. This is where you get funky, get down with your bad self. Wiggle around in your seat, here we go. Circulate my love right now, I circulate my love. Sing it.
Circulate my love right now. I circulate my love.
Yeah, I circulate my love right now, I circulate my love. Come on.
Circulate my love right now. I circulate my love.
Oh, and
It returns to me.
how?
Multiplied abundantly.
Oh, 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 I circulate my joy right now, I circulate my joy, circulate.
Circulate my joy right now. I circulate my joy.
Yeah, I circulate my joy right now, I circulate my joy.
Circulate my joy right now. Circulate my joy.
Oh, and
It returns to me. Multiplied abundantly.
yeah,
Circulation. It's across the nation. It's a love vibration.
around the world and beyond. Oh, what I know, here's what I know. Money is not an action. We circulate that beautiful God, divine love, peace, joy, energy. And we manifest our dreams, and we live the life we want because it's our life to live. That's what we are, that's who we are, and I know that's the truth right now. Can I hear you say, yeah?
Yeah!
Yeah!
Oh yeah!
Gonna circulate this money, gonna do some good in the world and do some good for us too, yeah. Here we go. A 1, 2, 3, 4. Circulation.
It's across the nation.
It's a love vibration.
Love vibration.
Around the world and beyond. Let's circulate these gifts right now. I circulate these gifts. Sing.
Circulate these gifts right now. I circulate these gifts.
Yeah, I circulate these gifts.
Circulate these gifts.
And
It returns to me. Multiplied abundantly. Oh, 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 oh.
You all see why I love Karen Mitchell so much, right? Like, it's not just me. So, Karen Mitchell went far away. Don't go too far. Come on up. And Reverend Keith, you're still here. Come on up. We're going to do our closing prayer, closing treatment, and whatever closing treatment looks like for you. Reverend Felicia, come on up. Reverend Nancy, come on up. Robbie, do you mind tickling those ivories for us in prayer? Since you're sitting there and everything. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the universe for being what it is. To bring all of us together in this moment. These wonderful ministers, these wonderful people out here, Dana came from far away. I'm grateful to see her, that the universe has aligned for this moment. And the whole purpose behind all of this is for us to shine our light to encourage others to do the same. To live a life of joy, to create a context and understanding that anyone can do this. Anyone can choose whatever practice works right for them, to know that a life of joy is at hand. That we don't have to argue with one another. We can if we want to, but we don't have to. That we can choose peace, choose love, commit to living a compassionate life. And that when we choose to do that, we inspire others to do the same. So I am so grateful for all of the people who are committed to doing this. I'm grateful for this experience. I'm grateful for these ministers as I've had.
What I know is that each of us is here by absolutely divine appointment. Each of us is meant to be right here, right where we are, right in this moment. And this moment is perfect. This evening has unfolded as an inspiration to me, to each one here in its own way. This experience of love, sharing love as love. That's what each of us is here to do, and I am so grateful for the divine remembering of that truth.
Spirit speaks through each one of us, through our touch and through our love, through our hugs, through our smiles. Someone needs your smile today. Give them yours. Someone needs a hug today. Give them one of yours. It's so simple to love and so easy. It's good for us. Good for all of us. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to share this moment and these moments and know that we're changed because of them. We're richer because of them. And so I take this with me, and I know you do as well. So I'm grateful, and I lovingly pass my word.
And I know that Spirit is here, Spirit is now, Spirit is truth, Spirit is beautiful, and Spirit is powerful. Somebody's afraid right now, and I know courage. Somebody is ill right now, and I know health. Somebody is feeling some financial difficulty, and I know prosperity and abundance. I know that this is true. I know that there is only that, because that is love. Love is perfect. Love is good. Love is strong. Love is powerful. Love is here right now, up on this stage, sitting out in those seats, all together collectively. One thing, the one thing that is true, the one thing that is always true, and that is that which is God, that which is love, right next to me right now.
So a blessing is what I offer to each and every single soul that has decided to gather here this evening. A blessing of affirmation of what we all already know. May we continue to rewire and inspire. May we continue to be love. May we continue to come back to our true selves. May we continue to heal. May we continue to love. May we continue to breathe in spirit, in source. May we continue to walk in peace and harmony and joy and to play. To remember to play and laugh and chortle. May we continue all of these wondrous things, knowing that we surely are rising to this call of love that is before us, all around us, working through us. Yes. And I pass.
And so as I speak my word, I do so for each and every individual in this room, trusting that they know, that they know, that they know, that they know. That the peace and the power and the presence of the Almighty, that infinite power that we call God, and it matters not what we call it. We just simply listen and feel it. The beating heart of our individual hearts, it's the same we share. That energy field of life itself. And so I know for each one of us that as we depart from this time together, this sacred community, that we trust that we've come together by divine appointment. And And so we covenant together that as we move forward, we do so with a more open mind, with a more lightness of tongue, with a more willingness to give and to love, and to magnify that light that exists within each and every one of us. The act of namaste is not just a cerebral. It's not just because we think we're supposed to do it. It becomes a way of life, honoring the light, the life, the presence in each and every being of life. Today is the day. Now is the time. And we let it be as we say together, amen, and so it is.
So it is.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. All right, so I appreciate you all. Thank you very much. I appreciate you making sure I don't fall down these stairs. We're going to close with a song from Reverend Karen Mitchell. And just so you all know, if you have any thoughts, say it to somebody's face. Don't tell, I mean, you can tell me everybody was great. Feel free to do that. But if you have a thought, say it to their face. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it.
I also want to acknowledge that this whole panel idea came from Martha Villar. From the last time we were here, she said, you know what, I would love to see a panel minister done. Sharon, you got to come here next time, right? You got to share your story with us. Karen Mitchell, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this amazing gift. You are a light to the world. Thank you.
And thanks to Karen Frost. Without you, it would be a whole other thing. So yeah, in the rooms of the 12 steps, we say, be willing to be willing to be willing. Know that you know that you know, right? Okay. So this is called Willing to Change.
time so we can give you a data collection card and also a gift. Sorry for those of you who showed up the first time and had no presents, but hooray for all of you who are coming for the first time and now do get a present. That's one. And the second thing is if you have no money in your pocket, but you wanted to give, you can always Venmo us at Spirit Uncensored, whole thing spelled out, SPIRITUNCENSORED. And it's under David Allan Cruz's vein, so if you're like, I don't see it, you can always search under David Allan Cruz as well. All right, thank you so much for coming. Thanks for your gifts, thanks for your offering, thanks for your presents, and have a wonderful month, and I will see you next time.